I don't think I'd be sitting here now. And more so more than that, my wife Sharon saved my life. And my grandbabies and I love them all. So, with all that...
What does a legend wish for when there's almost no time left? On the morning of July 22nd, 2025, the world of rock lost its heartbeat. Ozzy Osbourne, arguably the most iconic voice in rock, the godfather of heavy metal, took his final breath at the age of 76. With him went not just a man, but a whole era of music that will never come again. But Ozzy, he was never only a musician. He was a movement, a raw force that turned noise into anthems and chaos into a kind of brutal poetry.
Thank you, Ozzy. Thank you for existing, you legend. We love you. Let's hear it for Ozzy.
His death struck generations of fans like a slow, deep ache. So many were shocked, frozen in disbelief, because just weeks before, he had still been performing. To hear the news felt like some cruel hoax, the kind that spreads on social media without care or truth. But oh no, this time it wasn't a joke. The news was real, and just like that, we had truly lost him. Ozzy Osbourne was gone. For thousands who loved him, for you, for me, we weren't just fans. We were a family bound together by decades of sound and spirit. And when the news broke, it was as if something inside us cracked open. The grief didn't feel distant. It felt close, personal, like losing a father or a grandfather. Because for so many of us, Ozzy wasn't just a voice on the radio. He was part of our childhood, part of our coming of age. He was there in the background of first heartbreaks, late-night drives, wild dreams. The music didn't just play, it lived with us. But even at the very end, Ozzy didn't fade. Not really. He didn't want to slip quietly into the dark. Just 2 hours before he passed, in a house that had grown quieter by the day, he turned to Sharon, his partner, his steady hand, the one person who had seen him in every state, and gave her his final wish. It came out in a whisper, so soft she had to bend close to catch it. But the weight of those words, it was heavier than decades of music and louder than any stadium could ever be. The days leading up to that morning had a strange stillness. At their countryside home, the curtains moved in the breeze, but everything else held its breath. Ozzy, once a storm on stage, now moved slowly, if at all. Sharon stayed with him through every minute. No cameras, no crowd. Just her and the man who once made the world feel electric. Parkinson's had been merciless. It took his strength first, then his movement, and tried to take his dignity too. But Ozzy never gave it that. Even when he struggled to sit up or lift a spoon, even when his voice came out in half-formed words, there was still that spark behind his eyes. The past few years had been brutal. He once said without drama, "The past 4 years have been sheer hell for me." And yet, his mind remained sharp. His humor somehow survived. "This body's broken," he had said one night, smirking faintly, "but the brain's still partying." It was pure Ozzy, brutally honest, a little cheeky, and completely himself. Each morning he asked for the same thing: tea, not medication, and Sharon, always Sharon. They would sit together for hours. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they didn't have to. His mind wandered freely through the years: childhood in Aston, the cold streets, the hunger, the fights. He'd chuckle about his first gig, scared stiff, totally unready, and completely alive. He spoke of Tony, Geezer, and Bill, not as bandmates, but as brothers, men who built something wild and true. And then came the quietest moments, the ones that hurt most to watch. When he spoke of his children, his voice would tremble. Kelly with her fire, Jack, so solid, Amy, who'd never needed to be loud to be strong, and the grandchildren. He wanted to hold on to those images more than anything. One night, barely audible, he told Sharon, "Promise me, they'll remember the fire, not the flicker." Sharon bit her lip and nodded, though her heart was breaking. She had seen him at his worst, stood beside him through addiction, fame, breakdowns, and redemption. But nothing was like these final hours, because now he wasn't Ozzy Osbourne. the Prince of Darkness. He was just the man she loved, asking not to be forgotten for his decline, but remembered for his fire. And in those last 2 hours, as the world outside kept turning, Sharon held his hand. No stage lights, no roar of crowds, just love, silence, and one last promise. In those final days, time moved slowly, as if the world was holding its breath. And yet, within that stillness, something powerful was stirring. Ozzy's body was growing weaker by the hour, but his spirit, his fire, remained defiant. He wasn't done. Not yet. It was late June 2025. I remember reading the first whispers in fan forums, unsure of what was true and what was hopeful imagination. But then came the story that stayed with me. That one evening, as the golden light of dusk filtered through the windows of their quiet countryside home, Ozzy sat beside Sharon, fragile, tired, but strangely alert. The pain that had dulled his eyes for weeks had, for a brief moment, cleared. He looked at her with the clarity of a man who knew his time was near, and he said something that would change everything. "I don't want them to remember a man in a wheelchair. I don't want to be their sadness. I want to give them one last roar, where it all began." It wasn't a dramatic moment. It was quiet, barely above a whisper. But for Sharon, it was louder than any stadium chant. She didn't cry, not then. She just nodded, holding his frail hand like a promise. And that promise, so intimate, so deeply sacred, became her purpose. The next morning, Sharon began making phone calls. Not public ones, no press, no announcement, just quiet, relentless work. She didn't tell the kids, didn't alert the fans. She held Ozzy's wish close to her chest like a precious flame, shielding it from doubt, from fear, from the world. The doctors told her it was impossible. The man could barely sit up without pain. His hands trembled. His lungs were strained. They said he wouldn't survive the pressure, that even attempting it could hasten his decline. But Sharon, who had walked beside him through addiction, collapse, and rebirth, knew something they didn't. This wasn't about survival. It was about meaning, about dignity. And I think many of us, fans who grew up blasting Sabbath records in basements and watching Ozzy defy every odd, felt that same pull. We didn't need him to sing perfectly. We didn't need him to stand tall. We just needed to feel that fire one more time. And Sharon understood that better than anyone. Ozzy was the storm. Sharon was the anchor. But now for the first time, the roles reversed. She became the storm, fighting battles on his behalf, pushing through red tape, convincing specialists to allow just one night, one show. Her strength wasn't loud or flashy. It was steady, relentless, and she never flinched. Because this wasn't just a concert. It was his goodbye, and she would carry that wish for him with every ounce of love and sorrow she held. Behind closed doors, Sharon became the quiet general of an impossible mission. She negotiated with venue managers, coordinated with old crew members, and pleaded with doctors to approve just one night of tightly monitored performance. Every no only made her more determined. Every setback reminded her of the urgency. Ozzy was slipping away. Time was no longer measured in weeks, but in heartbeats. She never saw it as arranging a show. To Sharon, this was sacred, a final offering, not just to fans, but to the man she had loved through every wild chapter. This was not about ego. It was about giving Ozzy the one thing no medicine or machine could offer, the power to choose how his story would end. Even when Ozzy himself doubted, when the pain flared, when the nights were long and his voice cracked with exhaustion, Sharon held the line. "I'm done, Sharon. Don't make me a fool," he said once, his voice a hoarse shadow. "You're not done," she whispered back, steady as ever. "Not until the music stops." She rehearsed with him in secret, sometimes in silence. When his legs failed him, she steadied his shoulders. When he couldn't remember a lyric, she sang it under her breath. When he felt shame for the shaking in his hands, she placed the microphone in his grasp and wrapped her fingers around his, reminding him that he didn't have to be perfect, just present. I remember reading the early rumors, whispers of something happening in Birmingham. I wanted to believe, but it felt too precious, too impossible, and that's how I knew it must be real. Because the truly sacred things aren't shouted, They're protected. Late into the night, while the world slept, Sharon was awake, arranging flight paths for the crew, choosing camera angles, rewriting set lists based on his breathing capacity. She knew every beat of what this would cost him, but she also knew what it would give him and give us: closure, fire, a final communion. Her silence during this time wasn't secrecy, it was reverence. This wasn't for publicity, it was for love, for Ozzy, for all of us who had ever screamed his lyrics in dark rooms and bright arenas, who had found pieces of ourselves in his chaos and courage. And finally, just days before the show, she stood before him, tired, trembling, but resolved. In her hands were the finalized plans. In her eyes, the weight of a wife about to give the world one last glimpse of her husband's soul. "It's happening," she said. "July 5th, Birmingham. Your night, your roar. One last time, AZ." And in his gaze, clouded by age, dimmed by pain, there flickered something eternal. Not fear, not sorrow, but readiness, gratitude, peace. Because he knew what we now know. He was going to leave us, but not quietly. Not as a patient, not as a memory, but as Ozzy Osbourne, roaring into the night one last time. To truly grasp why Ozzy Osbourne's final wish held such weight, not just to his family but to the entire world, we must journey back to the very beginning. Because that July night in Birmingham wasn't just a concert, it was a full-circle moment, the closing chapter in a story that began in the shadows of factories and the scent of coal smoke. His goodbye wasn't just a farewell, it was a declaration. This was who I am. This is where I come from, and this is how I want to be remembered. Born as John Michael Osbourne on December 3rd, 1948 in Aston, a gritty working-class district of Birmingham, Ozzy's childhood was anything but easy. He grew up in a two-bedroom house shared with 5 siblings. The sounds of clanging metal and industrial rumble outside were as familiar to him as his mother's voice. There were no dreams of stardom in those early days, just survival. School was a daily struggle. He faced bullying, isolation, and the silent frustration of undiagnosed dyslexia that left him feeling confused and worthless. "I wasn't stupid," he once said. "I just couldn't figure it out." At 17, he hit rock bottom. Arrested for burglary and sent to prison, he spent nights on concrete floors with nothing but regret and the echo of his own thoughts. Society didn't expect much of him. Neither, perhaps, did he. But in that void, something stirred. Music. It crept into his soul like a spark in dry timber. It wasn't entertainment. It was escape, survival, identity. Then came 1968. With Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward, he formed Black Sabbath, and something extraordinary happened. From the very first chords, their music was different. It didn't try to be pretty or safe. It was raw, heavy, and unsettling, just like life felt for so many. Their self-titled debut album in 1970 confused critics, but captivated a disillusioned generation. Ozzy's voice, primal and haunting, became the anthem for kids who never fit in. Paranoid, War Pigs, Iron Man. These weren't just songs. They were cries from the underground, from the lost, from the unheard. I still remember hearing Paranoid for the first time. The guitar riff slicing through my chest, his voice rising with desperation and defiance. It was like someone had finally put my teenage rage into sound. It wasn't just music, it was medicine for the misunderstood. But even as Black Sabbath's music shook the earth, Ozzy's inner demons refused to stay quiet. The same chaos that made his art so electrifying also threatened to consume him. By 1979, overwhelmed by addiction and instability, he was fired from the very band he helped create. For many, it looked like the end. But for Ozzy, it was only the beginning of a second act, one more daring and triumphant than anyone could have imagined. In 1980, with the support of Sharon and the musical genius of guitarist Randy Rhoads, Ozzy launched his solo career. Blizzard of Oz wasn't just a comeback, it was a revelation. Crazy Train thundered into the world as a symbol of rebirth, while Mr. Crowley blurred the lines between the theatrical and the terrifying. Diary of a Madman reminded everyone that Ozzy Osbourne wasn't just surviving, He was redefining what metal could be. That voice, so uniquely his, wasn't polished, but it didn't need to be. It carried pain, defiance, wit, and wonder all at once. The years that followed were a whirlwind of tours, triumphs, tragedies, and tabloid storms. He stumbled often. He relapsed. He faced public scrutiny, private despair, and yet always the music endured. In 1991, No More Tears proved he still had the power to stun, and in 1992, Mama, I'm Coming Home showed the world his heart, tender, loyal, and repentant. It was a love letter, yes, to Sharon, but also to the idea that redemption was always within reach. The world honored him with Grammys, with 2 stars, one on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and one back in Birmingham, and with his induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, both with Sabbath and solo. And still, he gave more. In 2002, with the Osbournes on MTV, a new generation met him not as the Prince of Darkness, but as the fumbling, funny, vulnerable father and husband who didn't pretend to be anything other than himself. That honesty, messy, chaotic, loving, made him real, made him family. And even as his health declined, Ozzy never turned away from his music. After revealing his Parkinson's diagnosis in 2020, many expected silence. Instead, in 2022, he roared back with Patient Number 9, climbing charts, winning hearts, and reminding everyone that his voice, cracked and weathered, still carried the weight of generations. Ozzy Osbourne's legacy isn't merely carved into records or awards. It lives in the people he uplifted, the misfits, the rebels, the unseen. His scream was our voice. His survival was our inspiration. And now in his absence, his music still surrounds us, still saves us. Because Ozzy didn't just make music. He made millions of us feel less alone. And that is a legacy no sickness, no silence, no passing can ever erase. There was something in Ozzy's eyes that night, Sharon would later say, that she hadn't seen in years. A stillness, a knowing. Though the pain had carved deep into his bones and his breath came in short, careful waves, he insisted, quietly without drama, that he had to be there. Not for the crowd, not for the cameras, but for the story, for the end of the story. He felt it, Sharon whispered once, her voice trembling in a backstage interview just days later. Ozzy knew deep in his soul that this would be the last time, and he chose to say goodbye the only way he ever knew how, with music. That decision, that quiet insistence from a man nearly silenced by illness, became the emotional spine of what would soon be known across the world as the most moving farewell rock had ever witnessed. It wasn't a concert anymore. It was communion, a prayer, a pact between artist and audience that this final fire would be shared, no matter how long the night or how heavy the sorrow. And the city of Birmingham, his battered, beloved hometown, stepped forward to answer that call. The transformation began slowly, almost reverently. No grand announcements, no headlines, just a feeling that something sacred was about to happen. By early May 2025, murmurs turned to motion. Local councils began discussing ways to honor their native son, not as a rock god, but as a man who had once walked those same soot-lined streets barefoot and invisible. Then came the posters, not of a young Ozzy mid-scream, but of a weathered, wise face, eyes half closed, hands outstretched. The summer of Sabbath, they read in bold, solemn lettering, beneath just one date, July 5th, Villa Park. By mid-June, the entire city was vibrating with anticipation. Giant murals of Ozzy's likeness emerged on brick walls that once bore graffiti. School choirs learned Changes and Dreamer. Radio stations played No More Tears on loop every evening at sunset. Cafes renamed their drinks in his honor. Crazy Train Cappuccino, Iron Man Mocha. Every corner of Birmingham bore some echo of his legacy, and still, no one said it outright, that this was the end, that this would be goodbye. Only Sharon knew the full truth, and she carried it like a quiet burden, hidden behind sunglasses and practiced smiles. While the world prepared for a celebration, she was preparing for something far more sacred, a farewell wrapped in thunder. The days leading up to July 5th were unlike anything Birmingham had seen in decades. Streets once quiet now echoed with guitar riffs from open windows. Tattoo shops buzzed with ink guns etching Ozzy's lyrics into skin. Children, too young to grasp the weight of it all, danced in city parks to Crazy Train, their laughter mixing with the song's defiant howl. But amid the joy, a quiet current ran beneath, the kind of silence that comes before a storm, or maybe before a goodbye. Sharon moved through it all with a grace that bordered on superhuman. She coordinated last-minute rehearsals, monitored Ozzy's health with a near-militant focus, and made sure no one, not the press, not even close friends, guessed the true nature of the night. Every detail was perfect, every second accounted for, not out of vanity, but out of reverence. This wasn't just a show, it was a ceremony, her gift to him. On the morning of the concert, as dawn broke over the rooftops of Aston and painted the Osbourne Bridge in pale gold, fans began to gather. Some had traveled from halfway across the world. Others had simply walked from down the street. All of them carried something with them. A memory, a vinyl, a tear-stained letter, a story only Ozzy could have inspired. At Villa Park, the air thickened with emotion. The stage, built like a temple, shimmered under thousands of lights. And when Ozzy was wheeled quietly behind the curtain, he reached for Sharon's hand and whispered, "Let's go out loud, love. Let them hear me one more time." And then, as if the heavens themselves paused, the lights dimmed and the opening chords of "Mama, I'm Coming Home" rang out. 40,000 voices rose as one. Some screamed, some wept. Others stood frozen, eyes closed, hands over hearts. Ozzy's voice, worn but unmistakable, cut through the night like a sacred wind. It trembled, it soared, it bled truth. That night, Birmingham didn't just host a concert. It bore witness to the last blaze of a soul too wild to go quietly. And 17 days later, when the world awoke to the news that Ozzy Osbourne was gone, it was that roar they remembered, not the silence. Because what Sharon had given wasn't just a stage or a microphone. She gave him a moment where death itself had to wait, where the Prince of Darkness stood in the light and gave the world one final, unforgettable goodbye. He had defied the odds, outrun death more times than anyone could count, and turned personal chaos into global legend. But when Ozzy Osbourne finally left this world, he did so not in darkness or drama, but in dignity. He exited like he had lived, on his own terms, with the quiet strength of a man who had already given the world everything. At his bedside, there were no cameras, no microphones, only the people who truly knew him, not as a myth, but as a man. Sharon never left his side, holding his hand with a tenderness shaped by 4 decades of love, triumph, and trials. Their children, Jack, Kelly, and Amy, stood close, a sacred circle of silence and sorrow. "He looked at me one last time," Sharon would later say, her voice breaking in an interview that brought even seasoned anchors to tears. "And I knew he didn't need to say anything. I could see it in his eyes. He was ready." But the world was not. When the news broke early that morning, it was as if time stood still. Across continents and cultures, people paused. Offices fell silent. Radio hosts choked up mid-broadcast. From Tokyo to Toronto, strangers shared the same gasp. For a generation who had grown up with his voice screaming through speakers, his death felt like losing a friend, a guide, a part of themselves. Social media erupted. The hashtag number sign, "Thank you Ozzy," climbed to the top in over 60 countries within hours. It wasn't a trend. It was a global exhale of grief and gratitude. Fans posted old concert photos, hand-drawn portraits, stories of how his music had saved them from darkness. People gathered in parking lots and parks, playing his records at full volume, singing until their voices broke. And it wasn't just the fans. The music world responded like a family had lost its patriarch. Sir Elton John shared a black and white photo of the two backstage in the 80s, captioned, "He was a force of nature, a dear friend, a rebel poet in leather and eyeliner. The world feels colder today." Rod Stewart called him the loudest soul with the kindest heart. Paul McCartney simply wrote, Legends don't die, they echo. Ozzy, your echo will never fade. But perhaps no tribute was more heart-wrenching than the one from Tony Iommi, his bandmate, his brother through decades of noise and glory. He posted a photo from their final rehearsal. The caption read, "I just can't believe it. My dear, dear friend Ozzy is gone. The laughter, the madness, the music. We shared a lifetime. There will never be another." In the days that followed, tributes turned into a tidal wave of remembrance. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame released a full-length video chronicling his rise from the soot-streaked streets of Birmingham to the grandest stages in music history. BBC Radio aired a 10-hour special, blending Ozzy's greatest hits with archival interviews, fan messages, and rare acoustic recordings that revealed the vulnerability behind the voice. In London, the Tower Bridge was bathed in candlelight projections of his silhouette. In Birmingham, the Symphony Hall glowed with his name. Times Square flashed his image for 24 hours straight, an unmissable reminder that the Prince of Darkness had lit the world in more ways than one. Across the globe, people came together, not just to mourn, but to celebrate a man who had helped them survive their own storms. In São Paulo, over 1,000 fans formed a choir in a public square, singing, "Mama, I'm Coming Home," in Portuguese as candles flickered like stars. In Los Angeles, Sunset Boulevard came to a standstill for an impromptu candlelight vigil as bikers, punks, and businessmen stood shoulder to shoulder in silence. In Tokyo, Shibuya's iconic digital billboards cycled through his most legendary stage moments, drawing crowds that stood motionless in awe. And even in war-torn corners of the world, where electricity was scarce and peace was rarer still, groups huddled in basements, playing his songs through cracked speakers, whispering thank yous to a man who had never met them, but had somehow understood them better than anyone. But the most intimate tribute came from Sharon herself. 3 days after Ozzy's passing, she appeared on a special broadcast, sitting beneath soft studio lights, holding the same wedding ring he had placed on her hand more than 40 years earlier. Her words were few, but every syllable trembled with the weight of a shared lifetime. "He didn't just want to live forever," she said quietly. "He wanted to matter forever, and he does." A pause, a breath, then one final truth. He gave everything, even when he had nothing left to give. In that moment, the world understood that Ozzy Osbourne's death wasn't just the end of a life. It was the final verse of a ballad that had saved lives, stirred souls, and screamed for the broken when no one else would. His legacy wasn't merely etched in gold records and Grammy plaques. It lived in every misfit who found courage in his chaos, in every outcast who heard their story in his scream. And though the stage was now dark, the echo of his voice, raw, defiant, and unmistakably human, would never fade. The tremble in Sharon's voice became the tremble in millions of hearts around the world. When Ozzy Osbourne passed away, having electrified generations, defied death on countless occasions, and forged an empire of chaos and melody, the world didn't just lose a rock star. It lost a living symbol of survival, resilience, and raw humanity wrapped in spikes and dark eyeliner. His departure wasn't a descent into silence. It was the stillness after thunder. Memorial concerts were announced across continents. Metallica dedicated their upcoming world tour to his legacy, now called the Crazy Train Legacy Tour. Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden pledged a tribute album, summoning rock legends to reinterpret Ozzy's most iconic tracks. Even the Vatican issued a respectful statement. Though his methods were unconventional, his passion touched the soul of humanity. Plans for Ozzy's funeral remained private. Sharon requested a small ceremony for family and close friends, followed by a live-stream tribute in Birmingham. She asked fans everywhere to light candles in their homes, play his music loud, and remember him not with silence, but with volume. He would have wanted that, she said plainly. Not silence, volume and still. Ozzy is not gone. His music plays on. His voice echoes in every stadium riff, every headphone crackle, every defiant scream. His influence bleeds into generations of musicians and hearts. His art, and more importantly, his spirit, became something eternal. That night at Villa Park wasn't just a concert. It was the fulfillment of a final, fiercely personal dream. A man's plea to leave the world on his own terms, in the city that raised him, surrounded by those who loved him. Sharon didn't just carry out a wish. She protected a flame, preserved a legacy, gave a dying man dignity, and made him roar one last time. The stage lights may have dimmed, but Ozzy was transformed, not diminished. His ultimate wish became reality. His life was reckless, legendary, and his final hours were quiet, dignified, and full of grace. A last bow from the Prince of Darkness, who turned chaos into a music empire, pain into power, and a fleeting body into an enduring legend. Let us hold that legacy. Let us carry his fire. If you're still here, perhaps you, like me, have lost someone you love fiercely. Maybe you held their hand in their final hours. Maybe they had one last dream too. To you, I send strength. Life can be unfair. It can hurt. But goodbyes, when spoken with love, can be beautiful. To keep Ozzy's spirit alive, please subscribe to our channel, share this tribute, and, if you'd like, leave a memory or a favorite song of his in the comments. Your stories, your voices, your music together form the eternal echo of his legacy. Ozzy may no longer sing on this earth, but he remains with us. In every chord, every lyric, every heart still beating to Crazy Train, he's always here, forever with us. Rest in power, Ozzy Osbourne. We will love you always.